The colony of New Terra floated like a blue-green jewel at the edge of known space. For 50 years, it had been a symbol of human hope, a world built on peace and unity. Families lived simple lives. Children ran through the silver fields beneath twin suns. Farmers worked in calm silence, and miners sang old earth songs deep beneath the ground. To everyone, it felt like the universe had finally become safe. But safety is only an illusion. On a quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the crimson horizon, the colony's main scanner detected something strange, a ripple in the black of space. At first, the technicians thought it was an error, maybe a solar flare or interference from the nearby nebula. But then the signal came again, stronger, closer. It was not a natural phenomenon. It was a distortion, like something tearing through space itself. Commander Elara Voss stood in the control tower, watching the readings climb. Her voice was calm but sharp. "Lock the scanners. Get me visuals." The holographic display flickered, then focused on the darkness above the colony. Something was there. Massive shadows moving without light, without sound. No communication, no response to hails. Just silence. Within minutes, alarms began to scream across the colony. Defense systems powered up, railguns rotated toward the sky, and the militia scrambled to their stations. Mothers pulled children into shelters. The colony's sky darkened as the first alien ships broke through the clouds. They were unlike anything humans had seen, black metal shapes with glowing veins of energy, moving with terrifying grace. For a moment, no one fired. It felt like time had stopped. Then the first beam struck. The ground shook as explosions ripped through the eastern settlement. Fire spread fast. The air filled with screams and smoke. The aliens did not speak. They did not demand. They simply destroyed. Elara's voice echoed through the comm system. "All civilians to bunkers. Defense units, hold the line." The colony's small fleet launched into the sky, fighters and shuttles armed with outdated weapons. They fought bravely, but they were outmatched. Human ships were torn apart within seconds. Every shot fired against the invaders vanished into their shimmering shields. In the command tower, Elara watched as one after another, her people died defending their home. Her second officer, Lieutenant Darren Holt, shouted, "We can't hold them. The shield generators are failing." Elara clenched her jaw. "Send the signal. Now." Darren hesitated. "Earth's far. It might take days to reach them." "Then let's hope we last that long," she replied. The communication officer began broadcasting. "This is New Terra to Earth Command. We are under attack, unknown forces, unknown origin. Heavy casualties, request immediate." The transmission cut off as an explosion tore through the command center. Elara was thrown to the floor. Smoke filled the room. She coughed, dragging herself toward the fallen console. Sparks danced across the broken screen. Outside the window, the sky was burning. She looked out and whispered, "We are still human. We fight." The last thing she saw was the alien flagship descending, its enormous shadow covering the entire horizon. A flash of white light consumed everything. Hours later, silence returned. The once beautiful colony was now a graveyard of ash and twisted metal. Wind carried the smell of burning fields. The only sound left was the soft crackle of distant fire. Amid the ruins, a small transmitter blinked weakly. It was damaged, but still alive. The signal continued to repeat on loop, "This is New Terra, under attack, unknown forces." It traveled through the void of space, across broken satellites, through dust storms, past forgotten outposts. The signal would take 3 days to reach Earth, but when it did, it would change everything. The universe would remember that moment, the moment peace died and vengeance began. In the darkness above the burning world, one alien ship lingered, scanning the surface before vanishing back into the void. There were no human survivors. The colony of New Terra was gone. But the message remained, drifting like a ghost between stars, a silent scream waiting to be heard. And somewhere far away, on the blue planet called Earth, a light on an old console would soon begin to blink. Soft at first, then steady, a warning from the edge of the galaxy. The signal was weak, but its meaning was clear. Humanity was no longer alone, and something terrible had found them. The signal from New Terra reached Earth 72 hours later. Deep inside Fleet Command headquarters, buried under layers of steel and silence, a lone operator noticed the blinking light on his console. At first, he thought it was a system glitch. Most distress signals were routine, lost cargo ships, malfunctioning satellites, but this one was different. The message was fragmented, full of static and screams. The operator replayed it 3 times before realizing what he was hearing. This is New Terra, under attack, unknown forces, then silence. He immediately forwarded the data to the higher command chain. Within minutes, alarms began to echo through the vast underground complex. Fleet Admiral Reyes arrived, his face grim and eyes sharp with focus. He had commanded Earth's defenses for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The footage from New Terra was grainy, corrupted, but the destruction was unmistakable. Cities reduced to ash. The colony's surface burning like a dying sun. Reyes stood still, hands behind his back, staring at the frozen image of the colony's last moment. "Run full analysis," he ordered. The AI system began decoding what little data survived. A few seconds later, a strange fragment of alien language appeared within the static. The room went quiet as the AI translated it. 2 words appeared on the screen. "Cleansing begins." Reyes felt a chill crawl down his spine. No one spoke for several seconds. Finally, he turned to his officers. "Prepare the war fleet." His words carried the weight of something humanity had not heard in decades. War. Humanity had grown used to peace. For 60 years, there had been no large-scale conflict. The fleets were old, sleeping giants floating in dry docks. The soldiers were scientists, engineers, explorers, not warriors. But now, that peace was shattered. Across Earth, the call went out. The orbital shipyards in Luna Base lit up with activity. Old battlecruisers were pulled from museums and refitted for combat. Engineers worked without rest, welding armor, reactivating engines, loading weapons that had not been fired in generations. The news spread fast. Every colony, every outpost, every human settlement across the stars received the same message from Earth Command: New Terra has fallen. Unknown enemy. All fleets on alert. Panic spread through the colonies. Some feared the attackers would strike again. Others wanted to flee deeper into space. But for many, anger replaced fear. Humanity had been attacked without warning, and that was something they could not forgive. Admiral Reyes stood in the war room, a vast chamber filled with holographic maps of known space. Around him, generals and strategists argued over what to do. Some wanted to wait, gather information, understand the enemy before acting. Others demanded immediate retaliation. Reyes listened quietly, then raised his hand for silence. "We cannot hide," he said. "We cannot wait. If they burned one colony, they will burn another. We must show them that humanity does not vanish quietly into the dark." The room fell silent. Everyone knew he was right. Orders were signed. The largest mobilization in human history began. On Mars, shipyards produced new weapons at record speed. On Europa, engineers activated the Titan-class destroyers. The skies above Earth filled with trails of fire as ships launched one by one, forming fleets that stretched beyond the horizon. For the first time in living memory, the war fleet was awake. Meanwhile, in the intelligence division, scientists continued analyzing the alien signal. They discovered faint energy patterns matching no known technology. The attack had come from deep space, beyond charted systems. Whoever the enemy was, they were powerful, organized, and ruthless. The data also showed something strange. The energy readings from the alien ships resembled ancient ruins discovered decades ago on Mars, long before humanity expanded into space. It raised a terrifying question. Had these beings been watching humanity for centuries? Reyes reviewed the report and muttered to himself, "They've been waiting." In the following days, the media caught fragments of the truth. News anchors spoke of an unidentified aggressor. Rumors spread, some said it was a rogue AI, others said demons from another dimension. But among the soldiers, the truth was simpler. An enemy had struck first, and now Earth would strike back. The mood across the planet shifted. The streets buzzed with energy, factories roared to life, old veterans returned to service, and young recruits volunteered in millions. Humanity, for the first time in a century, was united under one purpose: vengeance. Reyes watched the first fleet depart from orbit. Hundreds of ships rose slowly, engines burning bright against the dark sky. He stood by the window and whispered, "This is for New Terra." His aide approached. "Sir, where will we find them?" Reyes turned toward the holographic map, where a faint red trail marked the last known direction of the attackers. "We'll follow the fire," he said quietly. "It always leads back to the ones who started it." As the war fleet left Earth, the planet below glowed in silence. Families stood on rooftops, watching streaks of light vanish into the stars. They didn't know if their soldiers would ever return, but they knew one thing for sure: humanity had awakened. The signal from New Terra had done more than call for help, it had reminded mankind of what they truly were: survivors, fighters, builders of vengeance. Somewhere out there, in the endless dark, the enemy was waiting. But now, so was Earth. The war had begun, and this time, humanity would not be the ones running. The scout ship Hawk 9 drifted through the silent void toward the remains of New Terra. Its hull was battered, its sensors alert, every crew member tense with anticipation. The mission was simple in theory: investigate, gather data, and report. But after seeing the images from Earth Command, no one aboard the ship believed this would be simple. Commander Lyra Dane stood on the bridge, eyes scanning the view screen as the planet grew larger. Smoke still curled from the surface, and the faint glow of fires burned across once green fields. "Status report," she demanded. Lieutenant Rourke, the ship's navigator, checked the instruments. "Surface readings are minimal. Radiation is high. No life signs detected." The crew fell silent, each one imagining what had happened in those last terrifying minutes before the colony was destroyed. As Hawk 9 entered orbit, the full scale of the devastation became clear. Cities were flattened, towers reduced to twisted metal, and enormous craters scarred the landscape. The air shimmered with heat. Commander Dane swallowed hard, gripping the railing. "Scan for survivors," she ordered. The ship's sensors swept over the ruins, but all they returned was static and faint energy traces, nothing human. Even the automated rescue drones that were launched detected nothing. The silence was deafening. Hawk 9 began descending closer to the surface, and that's when they noticed something strange. Amid the wreckage, faint trails of energy, like ghostly footprints, stretched into the distance. They were subtle, almost imperceptible, but they moved in a pattern. "Captain," Rourke said, pointing at the display, "these readings, they're recent. Something moved here after the initial attack." Commander Dane frowned. "Are we talking survivors?" The science officer, Dr. Myers, shook his head. "I don't think so. It's not organic life. It's energy signatures, artificial. Some kind of propulsion." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Hawk 9 followed the trails, dipping into deep canyons and broken cities, the planet's scars opening beneath them like wounds. The trails led them farther than anyone expected, toward the uncharted territories at the planet's edge. It was as if whatever had left them wanted to be found, or perhaps was fleeing from something even greater. The ship's sensors suddenly picked up another anomaly. Massive hulks drifted in orbit, alien wreckage, abandoned but intact. The hulls bore marks of violent encounters, ruptured armor, and burned engines. Commander Dane's voice was calm but hard. "Scan those wrecks. Identify the species." The science officer adjusted the sensors. "Preliminary analysis. These are not Zurith ships," he said, referring to the known attackers. "They're older, more advanced, and heavily damaged. Whatever attacked New Terra, they were not alone." A hush fell over the bridge. Hawk 9 followed the trail farther into uncharted space, past dead moons and asteroid belts. The ship's AI projected faint images of drifting alien vessels, some broken, others smoldering, as if a larger battle had taken place far from human eyes. The crew realized for the first time that humanity was caught in a much larger war, one that spanned light years and involved species they had never imagined. "So the Zurith, they're not the top predators here," said Lieutenant Rourke quietly. Commander Dane nodded. "No. And we've stumbled right into the middle of it." Suddenly, a sensor alert blared. A shadow moved across the planet below, something large and fast. Hawk 9 pivoted to track it, but the object vanished into a canyon before the cameras could capture it. "It's gone," Dr. Myers muttered. "But it's alive. Definitely alive." Commander Dane clenched her fists. "We need answers. Record everything. Every trace, every signature. Earth must know the full story." The crew worked in tense silence, aware that every moment on this planet could be the last. As Hawk 9 ascended from the surface, the energy trails led not just to the planet's edge but beyond, into the uncharted void where stars were few and navigation was perilous. Every measurement they took suggested a path deeper into alien territory. The ship's AI warned of gravitational anomalies, meteor fields, and unseen hazards, but Commander Dane pressed on. "We have a duty to the fallen," she said. "We cannot turn back now." Hours passed as Hawk 9 traced the energy footprints, and then the crew found something they had not expected. Among the alien wrecks drifting silently, some were moving. Faint propulsion signals indicated autonomous systems still functioning. It became clear that the attackers were being hunted themselves, by forces unknown, far deadlier than the Zurith. Dr. Myers leaned over the display. "Captain, look at this. The energy readings are similar to the Zurith ships we saw attacking New Terra. Whoever or whatever is out here, they are at war with the attackers too." Commander Dane felt a cold weight settle in her chest. Humanity had survived a brutal attack, yes, but the universe beyond New Terra was a battlefield. A battle they had entered unwillingly. Hawk 9 continued its silent pursuit, every crew member aware that this mission was no longer about gathering data. It was about survival, and about understanding an enemy that they had barely begun to imagine. Somewhere in the darkness of uncharted space, the traces of the battle ahead waited, ready to test the limits of human courage. The crew knew one thing with certainty: if they survived, Earth would need every bit of this knowledge. Humanity was no longer alone, and the war that had touched New Terra was only the beginning. Hawk 9 moved forward, into the shadows, following trails of fire, ruin, and secrets older than the human colonies. And far beyond the stars, something watched, calculating, patient, and deadly. The fate of humanity had just become part of a war that stretched across the galaxy, and there would be no turning back. Fleet intelligence was busy decoding the fragments of the alien message recovered from New Terra, working day and night in a subterranean complex beneath Earth's capital. The language was complex, unlike anything humans had catalogued, full of sharp, clipped symbols and energy patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. 4 days, the best linguists and AI specialists tried to piece it together. Then, finally, a partial translation emerged. The attackers were identified as the Zurith, a species older than human memory, a civilization that viewed humanity as contaminants in the galaxy. The words of the message were cold and precise: "Extinction begins. No mercy will be granted." Fleet Admiral Reyes stared at the translation, the weight of it pressing on him. He had seen wars before, but this was different. The Zurith did not negotiate. They did not seek resources or territory, they sought total annihilation. Reyes immediately called an emergency council of the highest-ranking officers and scientists. Maps of the galaxy, holographic projections of known Zurith positions, and the fragment of the destroyed New Terra all lit the room in a ghostly glow. "We cannot wait," Reyes said, his voice firm. "If we do, every human colony is doomed." The council debated the risks. Some suggested building more defenses, strengthening existing colonies, gathering intelligence. But Reyes shook his head. "We are not dealing with a single raiding party. This is a deliberate strike. They are organized, patient, and brutal. The only language they understand is force. Orders were issued immediately. Earth's war fleet, long dormant in orbital docks and deep space harbors, began mobilizing. Massive ships with reinforced armor and weapons previously reserved for ceremonial drills now roared to life. Engines ignited, casting red and blue flames into the void, a brilliant and terrifying display. The humans had waited centuries for this day, even unknowingly. Entire industries were redirected to war production, factories running 24 hours to construct new destroyers, frigates, and battle cruisers. Engineers welded armor plates over hulls while weapons officers tested new plasma cannons. Every ship that rose from the planet's surface carried the weight of humanity's vengeance. Meanwhile, scientists continued to study the Zurith technology. Their ships were shielded in ways that defied human physics, moving with impossible speed and precision. Energy readings suggested weapon systems that could erase whole fleets in minutes. But the humans were not deterred. Strategists began adapting old Earth war tactics to the new era of space combat. Guerrilla maneuvers, ambushes in asteroid fields, decoy fleets, human ingenuity would be their greatest weapon. As the first squadrons left Earth's orbit, projections showed that even a single victory would not be enough. The Zurith Empire was vast, with countless worlds under their control. The humans were small in number and inexperienced, but they had something the Zurith could not predict: determination. Back on Earth, citizens watched the massive fleet depart, streaks of fire and light piercing the night sky. Families whispered prayers, soldiers saluted, and scientists monitored every piece of information coming from the front lines. Among the military analysts, a chilling discovery emerged. The Zurith had left behind a trail of destruction across multiple star systems. Each world they struck was abandoned before the humans could intervene, leaving only death and silence in their wake. The pattern suggested intelligence, strategy, and patience. It became clear that the attack on New Terra was not a random act of aggression. It was the beginning of a calculated campaign to wipe humanity from the stars before they could rise to any significant power. Admiral Reyes reviewed the maps again, noting the red markers of known Zurith outposts. He traced their likely routes, predicting the paths the enemy might take next. "We follow their line of destruction," he told his officers. "We intercept them before they strike again. Every second counts." In the weeks that followed, the war fleet gathered strength. Humans from colonies and Earth alike joined the effort, reinforcing ships, providing supplies, and offering expertise in weapons, strategy, and survival. Training simulations ran continuously. Pilots studied alien tactics. Engineers learned to modify weapon systems to counter Zurith shields. By the time the fleet left for its first engagement, every human aboard knew the stakes. They were the first line of defense for all of humanity. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, the Zurith were watching. They had underestimated humanity once, seeing them as fragile, weak, and unprepared. Now, the humans were awake, and the cost of that mistake would be deadly. The first contact occurred at the edge of a nearby star system, where a Zurith outpost had been established. Scouts detected the alien presence before the humans arrived, giving them a fleeting chance to plan. Even with that warning, the humans were still facing a formidable enemy. The outpost's defenses were immense, powered by energy sources beyond human comprehension, and the ships stationed there moved with precision and speed that no one had anticipated. But the humans did not falter. Captain Jonas Hale, leading the vanguard, devised a daring plan. Utilizing asteroid fields as cover, they approached the outpost from angles the Zurith could not anticipate. Missiles were fired, lasers carved paths through defensive shields, and electronic warfare scrambled alien communications. It was a brutal, fast, and unforgiving battle. Many human ships were destroyed, but they had gained something more valuable than victory: knowledge. They learned the weaknesses of the Zurith defenses, discovered patterns in their formations, and realized that with careful planning, humanity could fight back. Back on Earth, the war room was filled with tension as reports arrived. Communications officers relayed every detail, showing the damage inflicted and received. Every casualty weighed heavily on Admiral Reyes, but he understood the necessity. Humanity was learning, adapting, and surviving. For the first time, they were no longer prey. They were hunters. And as the fleet prepared to move deeper into Zurith territory, a single thought burned in every human heart: the attack on New Terra would not go unanswered. The war had begun, and humanity was ready to strike back, not just for survival, but for vengeance. The universe would soon remember that humans do not surrender easily, and when pushed to the edge, they rise stronger than ever. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and humanity's determination would be tested like never before. The war fleet moved through the blackness of space, a shining column of human power stretching across the void. Every ship was armed to the teeth, engines burning bright, shields charged and ready. Captain Jonas Hale led the vanguard, a formation of fast attack cruisers and frigates, scanning for any signs of the Zurith. The first true counterstrike was about to begin. Humanity had learned from the attack on New Terra, studied the enemy, and prepared as best they could. The target was a Zurith outpost on a rocky moon in a distant system, a forward base that had served as a staging ground for the assault. As the fleet approached, the moon came into view, jagged, dark, and cold, with massive towers jutting from its surface. Energy weapons glowed along its walls, and small fighter ships patrolled its orbit. Captain Hale's voice was calm but determined over the comms. "All units, maintain formation. Engage only when we have a clear advantage. Remember, precision over brute force." The human ships spread out, using asteroids and the moon's shadow for cover. The Zurith, expecting an attack, were ready, and as the first salvo of plasma cannons struck, the defenders responded with lethal accuracy. Explosions erupted across space, lighting the darkness with deadly fire. Missiles streaked past ships, hitting hulls and tearing armor apart. On the bridge of the lead cruiser, officers shouted orders, adjusting shields and rerouting power to engines to dodge incoming fire. Despite heavy losses, the humans pressed forward. Every strike, every maneuver was calculated. Unlike the Zurith, who relied on overwhelming force, humans adapted in real time, using tactics that had been perfected on Earth over centuries. Jonas Hale's strategy was simple yet effective: hit fast, retreat when necessary, and exploit the enemy's weaknesses. Using the asteroid fields, the fleet launched surprise attacks from unexpected angles, striking at key energy nodes and weapon arrays on the outpost. Several human ships were destroyed, but each sacrifice brought the fleet closer to victory. In the chaos, electronic warfare units scrambled the Zurith communications, causing confusion among the defenders. The outpost's weapons misfired, shields flickered, and the humans saw their chance. Boarding teams were launched from stealth frigates, infiltrating the moon's surface to disable remaining power cores. Down on the planet, the soldiers moved quickly, silent and deadly, planting charges and hacking into alien systems. Explosions ripped through the outpost, shaking the surface and throwing debris into orbit. Above, the human fleet pressed their advantage, striking at the remaining ships. The battle was fierce, but the combination of strategy, adaptability, and sheer determination gave humanity the upper hand. Slowly, the surviving Zurith vessels began to retreat, fleeing into the darkness to regroup. Captain Hale watched them go, exhaustion visible on his face, but satisfaction in his eyes. "We did it," he said quietly. "This is only the beginning." Yet the victory came with a sobering realization. The outpost had been only a forward base, a small part of the Zurith network. Intelligence gathered during the battle showed that their main forces were much deeper in space, fortified and prepared for a long campaign. The humans had struck a blow, but the war was far from over. Back on Earth, Admiral Reyes received the reports. He studied the data, noting both the successes and the heavy losses. Every ship destroyed was a reminder of the cost of war, but also of humanity's resilience. Scientists began analyzing the alien technology captured from the outpost, learning how to better counter shields, weapons, and propulsion systems. Humanity was fighting not only for survival, but for knowledge that would make them stronger. As the war fleet moved to regroup and resupply, Captain Hale debriefed his officers. "We need to prepare for the next encounter," he said. "They will strike back harder. We must be ready, faster, smarter, stronger." Communications picked up scattered transmissions from the retreating Zurith ships. Fragments of their language, intercepted and partially decoded, spoke of reinforcements and strategic shifts. It was clear the enemy had underestimated humanity, thinking them weak and unprepared. Now, the humans had proven that they could fight, that they could adapt, and that they would not flee. Among the crew, a quiet determination settled over everyone. They had seen the destruction of New Terra, felt the fear of being hunted, and now tasted the first victories. They understood that this war would demand everything from them: skill, courage, and sacrifice, but it also showed them the power of unity and strategy. As Hawk 9 and other scout ships scanned deeper into enemy territory, new intelligence arrived. The Zurith were constructing a superweapon, a device capable of obliterating entire planets with a single strike. The fleet's path forward became clear. They had to stop it before it could be completed. Captain Hale gathered his officers. "This changes everything," he said. "We cannot wait. We must strike before it is too late. We are humanity's edge, and we will not fail." The fleet adjusted their course, moving toward the unknown, ready to face whatever awaited them. Every pilot, every soldier, and every engineer understood the stakes. The first counterstrike had proven humans could fight, but the real war, the one that would decide the fate of colonies, planets, and perhaps even the species itself, was just beginning. Deep in the void, the stars seemed quieter than before, almost in anticipation. Humanity had awakened, and the Zurith would soon learn that underestimating humans was a grave mistake. The galaxy had changed forever, and the fires of vengeance burned brighter with every passing moment. The war fleet drifted through the void, battered but unbroken, moving toward the coordinates revealed by intelligence, the heart of the Zurith Empire. Every ship bore scars from previous battles, hulls patched, shields reinforced, and weapons recalibrated for the next engagement. The crew worked tirelessly, knowing that the coming fight would decide the fate of humanity. Fleet Admiral Reyes studied the reports, his face tense. Sensors had detected massive energy readings from the enemy's home system, confirming rumors of a superweapon under construction. The weapon's potential was terrifying. Calculations suggested it could destroy entire planets with a single discharge. The Council debated endlessly whether to wait and gather more forces or strike immediately. Supplies were running low, the fleet had suffered heavy losses, yet hesitation was dangerous. Reyes finally spoke, his voice calm but commanding. "We strike now. Delay will cost more lives. If the Zurith complete that weapon, nothing we do afterward will matter." Preparations began instantly. Pilots trained in simulated attacks, strategists revised battle plans, and engineers reinforced the fleet's weakest points. Every person aboard knew that survival would require more than courage, it would require ingenuity. Meanwhile, scouts reported on enemy movements. The Zurith were aware of the fleet's presence and were preparing an ambush near a dying star. Its unstable gravity field and erupting plasma storms made navigation treacherous. The fleet adjusted its approach, using the star's energy to mask their signals, slipping into the enemy's system like shadows. As they entered the battlefield, the scale of the Zurith's defenses became clear. Hundreds of ships swarmed the area, smaller frigates darting between massive dreadnoughts, all protected by overlapping energy shields. The superweapon itself loomed in orbit around the gas giant at the system center, a colossal structure bristling with energy conduits and weapons arrays. Captain Jonas Hale led the first wave, commanding a squadron of strike cruisers tasked with drawing the enemy's attention while the main fleet positioned for assault. Explosions erupted across the void as laser fire and plasma beams lit the darkness. Shields flared, missiles detonated, and ships screamed through space, leaving trails of fire. Every engagement tested human skill, coordination, and bravery. Many ships were lost, but the fleet adapted, exploiting gaps in the Zurith formations and turning the enemy's overconfidence against them. Hawk 9 scouted ahead, tracing pathways through the battlefield, guiding human units to weak points in the defenses. Dr. Myers monitored energy signatures, directing fire to critical nodes on the superweapon while engineers recalibrated weapons in real time. As the battle raged, Fleet Admiral Reyes made a critical decision. A specialized strike team aboard the Dauntless would infiltrate the superweapon's core to disable it from within. Commander Lyra Dane volunteered, knowing the mission's high risk. The ship broke through the outer defenses under a barrage of enemy fire, weaving through laser grids and automated turrets. On board, the crew worked in tense silence, bypassing security systems and rerouting power. Every second counted. Outside, the rest of the fleet held the Zurith forces at bay, engaging in brutal close combat while minimizing casualties where possible. Human ingenuity shone as ships used gravity slingshots, electronic warfare, and coordinated strikes to disable enemy shields and weapon arrays. Finally, the Dauntless reached the superweapon's core. Commander Dane and her team initiated the charge sequence, planting explosive cores in key energy nodes. Time slowed as alarms blared throughout the ship, warning of imminent detection and countermeasures. Then, with a final countdown, the charges detonated. A wave of light and energy erupted from the superweapon, tearing it apart from the inside. The explosion was massive, rocking the system, sending fragments of alien ships and structures into the void. The surviving Zurith forces panicked, retreating into deep space to regroup. Human ships, battered but victorious, surveyed the destruction. Thousands of lives had been lost, and the cost was immense, yet the mission had succeeded. Humanity had struck the enemy's core and survived. Fleet Admiral Reyes addressed his officers through the comms. "This victory is ours, but the war is far from over. We have destroyed their weapon, delayed their plans, and proven we can fight. We move forward, united and stronger than ever." Among the crew, relief was mixed with sorrow. Families, friends, and colleagues had perished, and the weight of loss pressed heavily on every mind. Yet the knowledge that their actions had saved countless other worlds brought a measure of solace. The fleet regrouped, conducting repairs and tending to the wounded. The destroyed superweapon was a symbol of human determination and ingenuity, proof that even against overwhelming odds, humanity could prevail. Still, intelligence reports indicated that the Zurith Empire remained vast. More enemies waited beyond the edge of known space, fortified positions and hidden fleets poised to strike. Fleet Admiral Reyes knew the next battles would be harder, the enemy more cunning. But the humans had learned a critical lesson: they could survive, they could fight, and they could destroy what others deemed invincible. Commander Dane reflected on the mission as the Dauntless sailed through the quiet void. The stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to the horrors and triumphs of war. Humanity had paid a heavy price, but the spark of vengeance burned brighter than ever. Across the war fleet, preparations began for the next encounter. Ships repaired, pilots retrained, weapons recalibrated. Humanity was learning from every loss, growing stronger, sharper, and more united. And in the darkness beyond the dying star, somewhere in the depths of the galaxy, the Zurith would realize that humanity would not surrender, would not hide, and would not fail. The price of revenge had been paid, but the fire that had begun with New Terra's destruction now fueled an unstoppable force. The war fleet moved onward, ready for the challenges ahead, carrying with it the hopes, fury, and determination of an entire species determined to survive. Humanity had faced death, faced fear, and faced annihilation, yet they had emerged stronger, proving that when pushed to the edge, they did not break, they fought back. And the galaxy would remember. The war fleet limped back toward human space, battered, scorched, and heavy with the weight of loss, but victorious. The superweapon had been destroyed, the Zurith forced to retreat, yet every ship carried the scars of brutal combat, hulls blackened and shields flickering. Captain Jonas Hale walked the corridors of the Dauntless, observing his weary crew. They had survived impossible odds, but the cost was written in their faces: friends lost, families gone, and countless battles still ahead. Fleet Admiral Reyes addressed the fleet through a wideband transmission, his voice resonating across hundreds of ships. "We return, not as defeated, but as survivors. Humanity has proven it can rise against any threat. The galaxy has seen our resolve, and the Zurith will remember it for generations." Across the fleet, human crews stared at distant stars, knowing that their homeworld awaited them. On Earth, citizens watched the return of the war fleet with awe and fear. Massive celebrations and quiet tears mingled as families welcomed those who survived, while memorials were held for those who had fallen. Across every colony, humanity understood a profound truth: survival was no longer guaranteed, but courage, unity, and determination could shape the outcome of any war. Commander Lyra Dane reviewed the reports from the front lines. Intelligence indicated that the Zurith Empire was destabilized after the loss of their superweapon. Communication networks had been disrupted, supply chains severed, and morale shattered. Analysts predicted that the enemy would need years to recover, giving humanity a rare and valuable window to rebuild, regroup, and prepare for future confrontations. On New Terra, a small team of engineers and settlers returned to the ashes, determined to rebuild. The planet had been destroyed, its cities reduced to rubble, yet hope persisted. Machines cleared debris, drones surveyed the landscape, and humans began the painstaking work of reconstruction. Commander Dane's voice echoed in the communications channel, steady and inspiring. "We will not let the past define us. We will rise from the ashes of New Terra and all the colonies lost. Humanity survives, and humanity builds." Across the galaxy, the war fleet was reorganized. New ships were constructed, damaged vessels repaired, and seasoned pilots trained the next generation. Humans shared knowledge gained from battle, from technology scavenged from the enemy, and from strategies tested in the crucible of war. The lessons were clear: adaptability, courage, and intelligence were humanity's greatest weapons. Fleet Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out over the void, contemplating the future. The galaxy was vast and full of unknown dangers, yet he felt a renewed confidence. Humanity had awakened, no longer a passive observer of the cosmos. The attack on New Terra had been a spark, and now that spark had ignited a flame that would not be extinguished. Across distant systems, faint signals reached Earth. Survivors from scattered colonies began returning, sharing tales of horror, survival, and resistance. Each story strengthened the resolve of those who had never faced the Zurith directly. Humanity was no longer a scattered species; they were united in purpose, in vengeance, and in the unyielding belief that their home and their people would endure. As the fleet approached the rebuilt New Terra, the sight of the planet's first structures rising from the ashes filled every crew member with a profound sense of hope. Machines and human hands worked side by side to restore what had been lost. Fields were replanted, habitats reconstructed, and the foundations of new cities laid. It was a slow, arduous process, but it symbolized more than survival. It symbolized humanity's refusal to bow to destruction. Among the veterans, quiet reflections took place. Captain Hale and Commander Dane spoke of those who had fallen, their voices tinged with sorrow but resolute. "They fought so that we could be here," Hale said. "Their courage is the foundation on which we rebuild." Dane nodded. "And humanity will not forget. Every loss strengthens us. Every sacrifice fuels our resolve." In distant orbit, the last remnants of the Zurith retreated, licking wounds and plotting future attacks. Yet they would face a different enemy now. Humans had tasted war and survived, adapted and conquered. Every battle, every strategy, every victory had proven that while the Zurith sought to destroy, humanity sought to endure and to rise stronger. On Earth, children watched the night sky, unaware of the full horrors that had occurred, yet inspired by the stories of courage and survival. Humanity's legends were being written not in myth, but in the stars themselves, in the ships that had sailed to battle and returned, and in the colonies that had been rebuilt from ash. Fleet Admiral Reyes addressed the assembled leaders, scientists, and soldiers in a historic transmission. "We are more than survivors. We are witnesses to our own strength. From the ashes of New Terra to the edge of Zurith space, humanity has endured. Let this be known across the galaxy. We do not seek war, but if our worlds are threatened, we will rise, and the consequences will be absolute." As communication ended, a quiet determination spread among every human listening. They had faced annihilation, and from that crucible, they had emerged stronger, wiser, and united. The war fleet would patrol the borders, colonies would be rebuilt stronger and better defended, and humanity would never again be passive in the face of cosmic threats. The final image was of New Terra, slowly transforming from a scarred, silent world into a bustling hub of life once more. Fires of the past had been extinguished, but the flames of human determination burned brighter than ever. Humanity had been tested, had paid a terrible price, and had survived. The galaxy now knew the truth. When humans rise, they rise with unbreakable strength. The stars were no longer quiet witnesses, they were arenas for a species that would not be ignored. From the ashes, humanity had returned, scarred but unbowed, ready to shape its destiny among the stars. The legacy of New Terra, the courage of the war fleet, and the determination of every survivor would echo across the galaxy forever. Humanity had fought, humanity had survived, and humanity would endure.